morning everybody. Did you do your Joe Wicks this morning? I did. We were up and at it this morning from 9 o'clock, tuned in, did our crunches, did our planks, and we're good to go. Now, today we're going to continue our work. We are on Thursday, nearly the first week of homeschooling done. I bet your parents have found it tough. You guys have probably found it dead easy. You're used to this amount of work. Okay, we're going to jump straight in. Squares, let's have a look at our work. Right, let's jump straight in. So we are looking at comparing and ordering fractions today. So that is your learning intention. You can take that down into your book now. And let's take a look at one of these. Now we have seen these before for sure. This is your fraction wall. And a fraction wall is used for comparing fractions. So I've got a couple of questions to begin with. What happens to the numbers on the bottom as the shapes become smaller? Have a look. As these shapes become smaller, what happens to the bottom number? Hopefully you were able to see that the bottom number becomes bigger. So we can say it is true that the denominators, as the fractions become smaller, become larger. Okay, so the denominators become larger as the fractions get smaller. Now, next question. What fraction is smaller? 1/12? Let's go down the chart a little bit. Or 1/20th? What fraction is smaller? 1/12 or 1/20th? Of course it is 1/20th. Look at all the size of one of those little fractions. And again, look at the number. It's larger, but the fraction is smaller. So understand there's a relationship between those numbers. Next one, what fraction is greater, 1/5 or 1/6? Which fraction is greater, 1/5 or 1/6? Hopefully you were able to pick out that. 1/5 is the greater fraction there, the larger fraction. So let's take a look at the next little bit. How we use the fraction wall is we set this on and we can position it in line with one of the lines of the fraction wall. So let's take a look. I'm going to go to 1/3 over here and I want to see what it lines up with. Now hopefully you're reading down the page and you can see that 1/3 lines up with 2/6. So we can say from this that 1/3 is twice 1/6. Okay, 1/3 is twice 1/6. Let's move the chart a little bit and move the line now to line up here with the sixths again. We can also say, look at the chart at the top here. I've lined it up with the half. If I can just get it in position. We can say that the half is 3 times 1/6. So how many sixths would we need to make a half? We would need 3 times the amount of 6 to make 1/2, or 3/6. Let's now combine what we know from yesterday, what we've learned today about equivalent fractions, and let's try and put some fractions in order. Now, take a look at the fractions we have here. Let's put these fractions in order, starting with the smallest. Now this is really tricky to do because our denominators are not all the same. So we can't compare thirds to twelfths. We can't compare half to twelfths. So we're going to have to figure out what to do with these. So we've got to make these fractions the same on the denominator so that we can compare them to one another. And it's easier to go up instead of down this time to the lowest common denominator or simplify them. So the largest denominator that we have is twelfths. So let's put everything into twelfths. So 1 5/12 would stay the same. 2 2/3. Well, it could be changed and it would become 2. And think, what did I do to get from the 3 to the 12? I multiplied it by 4. So I'm going to multiply the 3 by 4 to get to 12. I'm going to multiply the top by 4 to get 8. So you've got 2 8/12. Now we're going to use that same technique right across and change these fractions respectively. So this one would become 1 6/12. This fraction would become 1 4/12, and this fraction would become 2 7/12. It does not need to change because the denominator does not need to change. So can we put these fractions in order now? Yes, we can. Start with your whole numbers. Look at the whole numbers. So obviously these 3 are going to come first, so we're working with these. What order should they be in? Well, 1 4/12 is the smallest. Then, following 1 and 4 twelfths, 1 and 5 twelfths. Followed by 1 and 6 twelfths. Followed by 2 and 7 twelfths. And then finally 2 and 8 twelfths. Now you could go and change those back into their original fractions, pair them up and put them in order that way again. Let's go ahead and do that. So 1 and 1/3 followed by 1 and 5 twelfths, 1 and 1/2, 2 and 7 twelfths, and finally 2 and 8 twelfths. We have now put those fractions which didn't have the same denominator in order from smallest to largest. So in your work today, you're going to be doing similar things, okay? You're looking at making fractions the same on the denominator so they can be compared. You'll be asked to put things in order from smallest to largest. You might also be asked to use your crocodile symbols. Now remember, the crocodile also eats the largest fraction, so compare those two, and the crocodile always eats the largest fraction. Okay, triangles, our turn. Let's continue our work in fractions and see what we're up to today. Okay, triangles, there is your learning intention for today. We also are going to be looking at comparing and ordering fractions. So pause the video, take that down. That is your learning intention at the top of your book. And then we will take a look at this. This is our fraction wall. Now we've definitely seen one of these before. Fraction walls are used to compare one fraction to others, okay? Or some fractions to others. So take a look. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions based on what you see here first of all. So let's start. Take a look at the half, the shaded area here. What would be equivalent or the same as 1/2? Now, how we can work that out is we put our pen at the end of the half, follow it down. Now, this thirds definitely isn't equivalent because you would need more than just 1/3. The 2/3 goes to there and we can't line it up with the original line here. If we follow on down, we could say that 2/4 is the same as 1/2. 2/4 is the same as 1/2. Now that makes sense because if you change that to a 2, 2 is half of 4. So 2/4 is the same as a half. What would be the same as 1/3? Take a look at 1/3. So have a look at it, follow the line down, and hopefully you can see that the same as 1/3 is nothing to do with quarters, nothing to do with fifths. It goes all the way over there. You have 1, 2 sixths. 2/6 is the same as 1/3. And again, that makes sense because if you change that to a 2, 2 is 1/3 of a 6. Of 6. So 1/3 is the same as 2/6. Okay, what about 1/4? Have a look, 1/4. What is the same as 1/4? Well, let's line our pen up. Follow it down. You can see we can pass the fifths, we can pass the sixths, and we have lined up with the eighths. 1/4 is the same as 2/8. So your fraction wall can be used to compare lots of different fractions. My next question for you triangles is, what happens to the number as the fraction gets smaller? What happens to the number as the fraction gets smaller? That's right, if you look at it, there's the fraction, it's quite large. The fraction gets smaller now, but the bottom number, the denominator, gets larger. Okay, and that works all the way down. Let's keep following it down, keep following it down. Look, the numbers are getting larger and larger, but the actual fraction size is tiny now, down at 1/20th. Okay, so in your work today, you might be asked to put fractions in ordering size. In this case, we are going from largest to smallest. Have a look at the fractions we have down here. Now you will notice one or two things. Okay, first of all, you'll notice that some of these fraction numbers are mixed numbers and they have whole numbers as well as fractions. If it has a whole number, it's going to be bigger than the fractions that do not have whole numbers. So which ones have whole numbers? This one and this one. Which is bigger, 2/5 or 1/10? Now, this is what I want you to do today. I'm going to include a copy of the fraction wall in our links. And I want you to use the fraction wall to compare 2/5 and 1/10 and then see which is larger. You'll work out which one comes first. Don't make the mistake of thinking these are all fractions, however. Have a look at this one. What is this telling us? This is telling us that we have 10 parts, and we have all of those 10 parts in our fraction. This could be represented by a whole number, okay? That could be a 1. So be careful, we have a whole number hiding in here. So look at the order of these things. We know that some one of these two is going to be first and second, followed by third, and then you'll be left with a couple of other fractions to look at. Use your fraction wall to do that, and I'll come back in a minute and give you the answers. Boom! How did you get on? This is what you should have from largest all the way down to smallest. Now remember what we talked about. As the fraction number gets bigger, the actual size of the fraction gets smaller. So 1/10 is much smaller than 1 2/5, okay? Or even 4/5. So 1 1/10 should be last, and you should have 1 2/5 as your largest. So with your work today, it's going to be super important that you use your fraction wall, this one here, to help you complete these tasks, okay? You're going to be asked to compare fractions, and you'll need to use your fraction wall in order to do that. You'll also be using your larger and smaller symbols, okay? Remember, the crocodile mouth always eats the larger number, or the larger fraction in this case, okay? And that's an example of the things that you'll be doing there. And last but certainly not least, it is my circles. Circles, let's take a look at what we're doing today. Okay, good morning, circles. Circles, our challenge today is to be able to shade in the parts of the fractions and then decide which one is larger. Now, it'll get progressively harder or harder as you go along. So first of all, colour in the fraction that is written down, and then compare the two fractions and point the crocodile mouth at the one which is largest. Now, these sheets will get harder as you go along, but follow that instruction. Now, you can also copy these out into your book. If you haven't a printer at home, copy these out into your book. That means you could change, instead of the pies or the circles, slices, change those into squares. So for example, on the first one we're looking at, there are 3 parts to it. You could draw a shape that has 3 squares. You only have to colour in 1 part, so you would colour in 1 square. The next one, there are 8 parts to the circle. You could draw 8 squares and then colour in 3. So let's be creative, let's do our best with this. Good luck, circles. Okay, literacy work for today. Now, in my class, when we read for enjoyment, first of all. Pure and simple, we want to enjoy everything that we read. After that, we might read some particular texts that fall into certain genres, okay? Maybe narrative texts, biographies, that sort of thing. We take a look at those texts and we dissect them, which means pick them apart and see what features are included in those texts. Kind of like what you did in your poetry yesterday. We looked at the features and then we tried to recreate a little piece of work using those features. So we read to see what good writing looks like. We write to try and put it into practice, and then I like to perform. If it is possible, we like to perform what we have written. And in this case, we can. You have written 2 pieces of poetry yesterday, so what I would like you to do today is to perform those pieces of poetry for someone. So, like you would if you were writing a good piece of work, plan that out, practice it. Get your flow of your poetry going. Pronounce certain parts with emphasis as well. Pronounce it loud, pronounce it clear as if you're talking to your teacher right at the back of the room and you're projecting your voice. If you want, record it, share it, okay? Let everybody see your poetry. Is it quiet in certain parts for a reason? Does it get louder in certain parts for a reason? Do you want to leave pauses for emphasis? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. Okay, have a go at that today and let's see how your performance turns out. So today's topic challenge, we're going to change direction a little bit and have a little bit of artwork. Now I realise that we are at home. The chances of you having clay, paper mache, paint brushes, lots of different art tools that you need is going to be slim. So we're going to keep this art lesson nice and simple. I have got a demo for you right here, a nice little spaceman. It's how to draw this spaceman. I thought this would be a great video for you to have a go at. Okay, so I'm going to send you the link in the description and it will take you to this video on how to draw your space astronaut. Let me see how you get on. I would love to see what they turn out like. And finally, just a quick message from me. I hope everybody is indoors and everybody is well. I pray that everybody is doing okay. Make sure you keep washing those hands. Don't go outside unless it's necessary. And try and make it easy for whoever's at home whenever you're teaching. No moaning and groaning. I tell you what, I miss my class. I miss teaching you all, asking me the difficult questions. It's hard to teach when there's nobody in front of you to ask you questions about the stuff that you're teaching. So I miss you all. I hope you're all well and safe, and I'll hopefully see you sooner rather than later.